The large hall of the Galactic Council was filled with strange colors and sounds. Tall creatures with crystal skin spoke in sharp voices. Small winged beings floated above their seats. Their eyes glowing as they watched, the room smelled of metal and dust. In the center stood Mira, a young human woman, her hands tied with silver bands that shone in the light. The council speaker, a creature with a face like smooth stone, raised his voice. Human Mira, you are sent to Ravik, a world where no one survives. You will land with no help and no rescue. This is the judgment of the council. Many in the hall nodded. They believed she would not last a single day. To them, humans were dangerous animals that needed to be shown their place. Sending her to Ravik was not just punishment. It was a warning to all humans. Mira did not speak. Her eyes were calm and steady. She had grown up on Kar's Reach, a human world where storms tore the ground apart and giant birds hunted from the sky. She had learned to climb rocks faster than predators could reach her, and to find water in cracked soil. Ravik might be worse, but she knew the rules of survival. Two guards with insect-like arms led her to a small transport ship. Its door closed with a heavy sound. The ship shook as it left the council station and moved through cold space toward the planet. Through the small window, Mira saw Ravik grow larger. Its surface was dark green and deep red, broken by black mountains. She felt the slow pull of its gravity as they entered the atmosphere. The ship landed hard. The guards pushed her toward the open ramp. Warm, damp air rushed in, filled with the smell of plants and something rotten. The sound of distant roars echoed through the thick jungle. The guards quickly left, and the ship lifted off, leaving her alone. Mira stood still for a moment. The ground was soft and wet. Strange plants as tall as buildings swayed in the breeze. She could see claw marks on the trees, some as long as her arm. Small flying shapes circled high above, their wings moving without sound. Every sense told her this place was alive with danger. She looked around for a place to start. On Kar's Reach, the first rule had been to find safe ground. She spotted a ridge of black stone nearby and made her way to it, stepping carefully. She kept her breathing slow so that nothing could hear her too far away. Halfway up the ridge, she heard a sharp snap of a branch behind her. She froze. A creature stepped into view. Low to the ground, its eyes glowing yellow in the shadows. It was covered in thick scales and had long teeth that clicked together. It moved slowly, like it was testing her reaction. Mira's hands tightened around a stick she had picked up earlier. When the creature lunged, she sidestepped and slammed the stick into its side. It let out a short hiss, but kept coming. She backed toward the ridge, grabbing a loose rock from the ground. As the creature leapt again, she struck it across the head with all her strength. The rock broke, but the creature stumbled, its head turning away. She did not waste the chance. She climbed the ridge fast, leaving it below, pacing and watching. From the top, she saw the wide jungle spread out, broken by rivers and dark valleys. Smoke curled from a far-off spot, maybe from some burning plants, or another predator's lair. She sat for a moment, letting her heart beat slow, and thought about her next move. She had no weapons except broken stone and wood, no food except what she could find, and no shelter. But she had something more important: time. The council thought she would die quickly. She planned to prove them wrong. If she could learn the land, she could survive. If she could survive, she could win. The sun of Ravik dipped lower, turning the sky a strange shade between gold and violet. The cries of unseen creatures grew louder. Mira knew she had to find a safe place before night came. She spotted a cluster of giant roots near the base of the ridge, their hollow spaces large enough to crawl into. It was not perfect, but it would hide her for now. She climbed down the far side of the ridge, moving fast but careful. She reached the roots just as shadows stretched long across the ground. Inside, it was cool and dark. She could still hear the jungle outside, alive with the movement of things hunting and being hunted. As she rested, she thought about the council members' faces when they told her the sentence. They had wanted her gone. They had wanted her forgotten. But if she survived here, she would not be forgotten. She would be feared. Mira closed her eyes, listening to the night sounds of Ravok, and smiled faintly to herself. The hunt had already begun. The first light of Ravok's sun touched the jungle with pale gold. Mist hung low, wrapping the trees and vines in a soft veil. Mira opened her eyes and listened. She heard the dripping of water from leaves, the faint flutter of wings above, and far away, a deep roar that made the roots around her tremble. The night had passed, and she was still alive. She crawled out from her shelter and stretched her arms. The air was damp and warm, carrying the smell of wet earth. The sky was clear now, showing strange birds with bright feathers gliding between the highest branches. Their calls were sharp and quick, like warnings to each other. Mira knew her first. Task was water. On Kar's reach, her father had taught her that water meant life. But water also meant danger. Predators often waited near it, knowing prey would come. She scanned the ground for signs. The soil sloped downward to her right, and she heard the faint sound of running water. She moved in that direction, staying low and stepping lightly. The jungle floor was covered with thick leaves and tangled roots. Strange insects with shell-like bodies moved away as she passed. She saw claw marks on a fallen tree, deep and fresh, telling her something large had been here in the night. She kept her stick in one hand and a sharp piece of stone in the other. After some time, she reached a narrow stream, its water clear and fast. She knelt and drank slowly. Watching the shadows on the opposite bank, she saw no movement, but she did not stay long. She filled a large leaf with water, folded it, and tied it with vine to carry with her. Her next goal was food. She remembered seeing a fruit on Kar's reach that looked like the red pods, hanging from a nearby tree. But here, she could not be. Sure, many alien plants hid poison in their skin. She broke one open carefully and touched it to her lips. It burned slightly, and she tossed it away. She would have to hunt instead. Not far from the stream, she found tracks in the mud three-toed, with claws at the tips. They were small, about the size of her hand, and the pattern showed the creature was light and fast. She followed the tracks, slowly, careful not to snap any branches. The trail led to a clearing where small lizard-like animals fed on low plants. Their scales were pale green, and their eyes darted in every direction. Mira crouched behind a thick tree and studied them. She picked up a stone, weighed it in her hand, and waited. When one of the lizards stepped closer, she threw the stone with all her strength. It struck the creature on the side, and it collapsed with a short cry. The others scattered into the jungle. Mira rushed forward, grabbed the lizard, and ended. It struggled quickly. She thanked it in a whisper, as her people always did, and carried it back toward her ridge. There, she used sharp stones to clean it and set it over a fire she made by striking stones together, until sparks caught on dry leaves. The smell of roasting meat rose into the air. She ate slowly, saving half for later. The strength from the food filled her body with new energy. She could think more clearly now. Survival was not just about living day to day, it was about understanding the land. She decided to explore farther. Moving north from the ridge, she found a series of clawed trees that formed a wide circle. Inside, the ground was littered with bones, small, medium, and large. This was a predator's hunting ground. She studied the tracks and saw they belonged to a single creature, heavy and wide-bodied. Its stride was slow but powerful. She marked the area in her mind and moved on. The day grew hotter, and the air was thick. She drank from her leaf container and kept walking. She found vines with small purple flowers, and behind them, a nest of winged insects the size of her fist. Their wings shimmered in the light, and their movements were sharp. She kept her distance, remembering the pain of insect stings on Kar's reach. These were likely worse. By late afternoon, she returned to her ridge and climbed to the top again. From there, she could see the jungle stretching out like a green ocean. Far to the east, smoke rose in a thin line. That meant fire, and fire meant someone or something intelligent enough to make it. She wondered if there were other exiles on this planet, or if it was one of the wardens who managed the predators. Night came faster than she expected. She gathered dry leaves and vines, building a small fire in her root shelter to keep smaller creatures away. The sound of the jungle at night was a constant wave of noise calls, howls, and the sudden crash of something large moving through the undergrowth. Twice, she heard the deep roar from far away, and each time the other noises grew silent for a moment before returning. As she lay in the shadows, she thought about the council again. They believed sending her here would make humans fear them. But they did not know her kind. Humans learned, humans adapted, and humans could become the hunters in any land, no matter how dangerous. Mira closed her eyes, her mind already turning to the next day. She would move toward the smoke. She would see what made it, and she would learn whether it was friend or foe. Somewhere in the darkness, something screamed, and the ground seemed to shake under her. She stayed awake for a long time, her hand on the stone knife, listening. She was not afraid. She was planning. The sun rose high over Ravok, burning away the morning mist and revealing a wild, untamed world. Mira stood at the edge of a clearing. Her eyes were sharp and focused. She no longer moved like a frightened prey. Instead, she moved like a hunter. The jungle was no longer just a place to survive. It was a place to conquer. For days, Mira had watched the creatures of Ravok closely. She learned their habits and their weaknesses. She saw how the shadow mane cats hunted at dusk. These predators were fast and deadly, with sleek black fur that seemed to blend into the shadows. Their teeth were sharp enough to tear through armor, and their claws could cut stone. Many had thought Mira would run from these beasts, but she had other plans. She prepared traps and weapons from the bones and hides she collected. She sharpened stones into blades and tied them to strong sticks, making spears and knives. Her cloak was now made from the thick skin of a spike-backed lizard she had killed days before. The shadow mane cats were clever, but Mira was cleverer. She used the jungle to her advantage. She learned the animals' trails and hid in places where the cats would not expect her. She set bait from fresh meat and waited quietly. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mira saw the first shadow mane cat step into her trap. It moved slowly at first, cautious of the smell. When it took the bait, the trap snapped shut. The cat hissed and struggled, but it could not escape. Mira stepped from her hiding place. She held her spear steady. The cat's eyes glowed yellow in the dark, filled with wild anger. Mira did not hesitate. She threw the spear with all her strength. It struck the cat in the side. The creature fell silent. She felt no joy in the kill, only respect. She moved close and touched the cat's fur. This was no ordinary animal. It was strong, fast, and smart. Now it was hers. Mira worked quickly to skin the cat. Its pelt was smooth and dark, perfect for a cloak that would help her hide in the night. She took the sharpest teeth and tied them to strips of vine. She made knives from them, small and deadly. The jungle night came alive around her. Strange calls echoed between the trees. Mira wrapped herself in the shadow mane cloak and smiled. The hunters of Ravok had met their match back at her shelter. Alien observation drones watched her every move. The council's broadcast showed her survival as a strange and exciting game. Many in the galaxy called her the Huntress of Ravok. Some feared her, others admired her. But Mira cared little for fame. Her mind was set on a single goal: to survive and to send a clear message. Humans were not to be underestimated. She moved through the jungle with new confidence. She hunted small prey with traps and quick strikes. She learned to move silently, blending with the shadows. Every kill taught her more about Ravok's deadly ecosystem. One day, she found a small pack of scavenger beasts feeding on the remains of a larger predator. The beasts were ugly, with sharp teeth and rough fur. Mira waited until one stepped too close, then lunged. Using her knives, she fought quickly and fiercely. The beasts scattered, leaving her with fresh meat and valuable hide. Mira's body grew stronger, her senses sharper. The jungle, once a place of terror, had become her home. As days passed, she noticed the alien wardens had started to take action. They sent hunting parties to find her. These were creatures trained in deadly combat and tracking. The council wanted her eliminated before she could become a symbol of defiance. But Mira was ready. She used the jungle's dangers against the wardens. Poisonous vines, quicksand pits, and swarming stinger flies became her weapons. She set traps along the paths she knew the hunters would take. The first warden arrived at her trap, a giant creature. With armored skin and glowing red eyes stepped into a pit hidden by leaves. It struggled to climb out but could not. Mira stood above, holding a spear tipped with poison. She waited, calm and patient. When the warden looked up at her, Mira spoke softly. "You should not have come." She threw the spear, striking its leg. The poison worked quickly. The warden roared and fell to the ground. Mira did not kill it. Then, instead, she left it alive but trapped, a warning for others who dared come after her. The jungle seemed to whisper her name now. Creatures moved aside as she passed. The alien watchers spoke of her skill and courage in hushed voices. Mira knew this was only the beginning. Ravok was a world of hunters. She was now one of them. The hunt was her life, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The Galactic Council watched with growing unease. Mira's survival on Ravok was no longer a simple test. She had become a symbol of challenge to their authority. They decided to send their elite hunters, the Ravok Wardens, to end her defiance. Once and for all, these wardens were unlike any creature Mira had faced before. They were trained from birth in the art of hunting and combat. Their bodies were strong and fast. Their minds were sharp and cruel. They wore armor made from the scales of Ravok's fiercest beasts. Their weapons were crafted to kill quickly and silently. When the first group of wardens landed on Ravok, Mira was ready. She had watched the skies for their arrival. She had learned their paths from the jungle floor. She knew the dangers of the world better than they did. The wardens moved through the jungle like shadows. Their eyes searched for signs of life. Their steps were careful but certain. They believed they would find Mira and kill her quickly. Mira watched from a hidden place high in the trees. She held a spear tipped with poison made from the venom of Ravok's deadly spiders. She smiled quietly. The wardens thought they were hunters. But here, the jungle was hers. The first warden stepped on a patch of quicksand hidden beneath leaves. His heavy foot sank slowly before he could pull free. Mira dropped a heavy branch on his back. The warden screamed, but the other wardens did not hear. The jungle swallowed the sound. Mira climbed down from the tree. She moved fast and silent, striking before the others could react. One by one, she led them into trap spits lined with sharp spikes, webs of thorny vines, and nests of stinger flies that attacked with painful bites. The jungle itself seemed to fight for her. The wardens found no peace, no safe path. Their numbers shrank quickly. The leader of the wardens, a tall figure with dark armor and glowing eyes, called for retreat. He knew the jungle was against them, but Mira was not finished. She tracked the leader through the thick jungle. He was strong, skilled, and dangerous. But she had something he did not: knowledge of every hidden path, every deadly plan, and every silent predator. At last, they met face to face in a narrow canyon where the sun barely touched the ground. The walls were steep and covered with moss. The air was thick with tension. The leader raised his weapon, a blade made from the tooth of a Ravok dragon. Mira held her spear steady. Neither moved. The fight began with quick strikes and fast dodges. The leader's blade cut through the air, sharp and deadly. Mira used her spear to block and strike, aiming for weak points in the armor. The canyon echoed with the sound of metal against stone. The battle lasted for what felt like hours. Both fighters were skilled and tired, but Mira saw an opening. The leader had made a small mistake, leaving his side unprotected. With a sudden move, she drove her spear forward and struck the leader's side. He gasped, the air leaving his lungs. Mira stepped back, her eyes fierce. The leader looked at her with respect and pain. "You are stronger than we thought," he said quietly. Mira did not smile. "Tell your people, I will not die here. I am the hunter now." She left him standing there, wounded but alive. She did not kill him because she wanted him to carry her message. When the other wardens heard of their leader's defeat, fear spread through their ranks. They retreated, and Ravok returned to quiet. Mira stood on the canyon floor, breathing heavily but proud. She had faced the greatest hunters the council could send and won. Her story was no longer just about survival. It was about strength, courage, and the will to fight against impossible odds. The jungle around her was still and waiting. Mira knew this was only the beginning. The Huntress of Ravik had claimed her place among the apex predators. News of Mira's survival in Ravik spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Council's carefully planned sentence had turned into a spectacle no one had expected. What began as a quiet exile had become a story of courage, strength, and defiance that inspired many across different planets and star systems. Beings from many races watched the broadcast with growing interest. Some whispered in dark corners, admiring the human who had turned a death sentence into a hunt. Others felt fear. If a single human could survive Ravik, what could an entire human civilization do? On the crowded world of Varda, the streets buzzed with talk about Mira. Children pointed at holoscreens showing clips of her hunting, her fierce eyes shining under the shadow mane cloak. Merchants sold small statues and trinkets in her image. People who had never heard of humans before now knew her name. The council met in secret chambers to discuss the problem. Some members argued to send more wardens and weapons to eliminate Mira. Others warned that such actions might make her a symbol of rebellion, rallying humans and alien allies alike. The idea of a human legend growing so strong was dangerous to their control. Meanwhile, Mira moved through Ravik with quiet purpose. She had heard the stories of her own fame through the drones. Hidden in the jungle, she knew many eyes were on her, watching every step. But she was not afraid. She was ready. One day, she found tracks unlike any she had seen before, large and deep. They belonged to a creature even the predators of Ravik seemed to fear. Mira's heart raced with excitement and caution. She knew this was a test she had to face. The jungle whispered secrets as she followed the trail. Trees bent under the weight of giant wings. The air grew thick with the scent of ancient power. Mira's mind sharpened. She prepared traps and weapons. From the bones and stones she carried dot at night. She sat beside her fire and thought about the galaxy watching her. She knew her actions had changed many minds. Humans were no longer seen as weak or simple. She was proof of what her kind could do. On the distant planet of Lothar, a small group of rebels cheered her success. They saw in Mira a hope for freedom from the Council's control. Secret messages called her a hero and a symbol of strength. The Council's leaders grew more divided. Some wanted to negotiate with the humans, fearing open war. Others wanted to crush the legend before it could grow. But time was not on their side. Mira smiled to herself. She was no longer just surviving. She was making history. Her hunt was not only for food or safety. It was a fight for respect and freedom. The jungle of Ravik waited for her next move, and so did the galaxy. The jungle of Ravik was quiet. The air was heavy with heat and the scent of earth. Mira stood at the edge of a wide canyon. Before her lay the land of the greatest predator on this world, the creature that ruled over the jungle with power and fear. It was called Ravik Prime. The tracks she followed were huge, deep impressions in the soft soil. Made by heavy feet, broken branches, and crushed plants showed the path of a massive beast. Mira felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She knew this hunt would test everything she had learned. For weeks, she watched the creature from a distance. Ravik Prime was a giant reptile with thick, armored skin and horns that curved like great trees. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its roar shook the ground. Other predators ran from it. Even the deadly shadow mane cats kept their distance. Mira studied its habits carefully. She learned where it drank water, where it rested during the day, and how it hunted. She knew she could not face it alone in a straight fight. She would need a plan. Using the knowledge she gained, Mira prepared the land for the final battle. She found a narrow canyon where the walls were steep and close together. There, Ravik Prime could not turn easily. She gathered rocks and sharp stones, setting traps along the path. As the sun rose, Mira waited hidden among the trees. Her heart beat fast, but her hands were steady. She wore her cloak made from the shadow mane cat's pelt. and held her spear tipped with poison. The ground began to shake. From the jungle came the giant form of Ravik Prime. It moved slowly, but with terrible strength. Its eyes found Mira's hiding place, and it let out a deep roar that echoed through the canyon. Mira stepped forward, standing tall. She called out, her voice clear and strong. The great beast charged. The battle had begun. Ravik Prime swung its massive head, trying to crush her with its horns. Mira dodged. Using the traps she had set, rocks fell from above, and vines wrapped around the creature's legs. The beast struggled but kept coming. Mira attacked quickly. She aimed for the soft places beneath its thick armor. She struck with her spear and knife. Moving like the wind, the fight was long and fierce. Both hunter and prey fought for their lives. After hours, the giant beast fell. Its roar turned into a low growl. Mira stood above it, breathing hard but victorious. She held one of its great horns high for the watching eyes of the galaxy. The message was clear. No matter the size of the enemy or the dangers of the world, humans could rise and conquer. Mira had turned a death sentence into a triumph. The council could no longer deny her strength. Her name spread further, and the galaxy's respect for humanity grew. As night fell over Ravik, Mira looked to the stars. She knew her journey was far from over, but for now, she was the queen of the jungle. The jungle of Ravik was alive with sounds as Mira walked toward the landing zone. The air was heavy with the smell of earth and leaves. The great beasts of the jungle were quiet, as if they knew something had changed. Mira carried trophies from her hunt's sharpened teeth, thick hides, and the horn of Ravik Prime strapped to her back. She moved with calm confidence. Above her, a small ship hovered, its engines humming softly. The Galactic Council had sent it to retrieve her remains, but Mira was alive. She had survived everything they had sent against her and had become something more than they expected. A legend. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss, and council soldiers stood waiting. Their eyes were wide with shock. They had expected a broken prisoner or a corpse. Instead, they saw a strong woman covered in armor made from the jungle itself. Mira stepped onto the ramp, her gaze steady and proud. She spoke clearly. I will return to human space. I demand safe passage. The soldiers looked to their leader, unsure of how to respond. The council had not prepared for this moment. The woman they had sent to die was standing before them, alive and victorious. One soldier stepped forward, his voice firm but cautious. The council orders your return. You will come peacefully. Mira nodded. I will come peacefully. But know this, I will never forget what was done here. I will never forgive those who sent me to die. The council debated. They feared that refusing her demand might lead to open war with humanity. Mira's survival had changed the balance of power. She was no longer just a human. She was a symbol of strength and resistance. After tense hours, the council agreed. Mira would leave Ravik and return home, but her story would remain with them forever. As the ship lifted off, Mira looked down at the jungle below. It had been her prison, her battlefield, and her proving ground. She had turned death into life and danger into power. News of her return spread quickly. On human worlds, celebrations erupted. People saw in Mira a new hope, a sign that humanity was not to be controlled or feared. Across the galaxy, whispers continued. Mira was the hunter who had walked into a death world and emerged as its queen. Her name was spoken with respect and awe. Mira knew her journey was only beginning. The galaxy was large, and many challenges waited, but she had learned that no matter the odds, no matter the dangers, humans could rise. They could adapt, they could survive, and they could hunt. As the stars shone outside the ship's window, Mira smiled. She was free, she was strong, she was home.